Now, long story short, he built a small, wasn't supposed to be a time machine to begin with. It was just supposed to produce an arc and be cool. His small model, which he used a laser from a CD to cause the spark to begin to move up Jacob's ladder, is what it's called, Jacob's ladder. When he got it all going, he noticed a very strange, sort of shimmery effect above the arc, and he threw a screw into it, and the screw disappeared. Now we're into something else. So our hero, Michael, went over to the power company and stole 6 power transformers, which he then hooked up to his line at home and made a giant model on his back porch using 2 poles, about 4 feet high. And he got himself a big Jacob's ladder. He also ruined a number of appliances, browned out most of the town that he lives in, and that, of course, is where the police entered the picture and appropriated Michael's transformers. He lost his job. He went to jail. He's recently out. Police said the transformers had a capacity of 12 to 76,000 volts each, enough to easily cause electrocution or an explosion. Markham, who told police that he has 2 years of college-level electrical engineering, said he was building a time machine, but didn't have enough power for it. That's according to the Stanbury police chief, Tom Hampton. Hampton said, quote, "He's not nuts. He appears to be an intelligent person with a lack of common sense." Hampton said Markham told officers he had not tried to enter the spark gap, and neither had anyone else. If anyone had, they probably would have been electrocuted, not transported in time. Presumably, he decided that if he got enough electricity together, he could build a time machine, because there is the concept that if you're going to do it, it's going to require an enormous amount of energy. So there it was, and you know me and these kinds of stories, and how I'm fascinated by time. So I set out to find young Mr. Markham, and I found him. It wasn't easy. I went through a couple of our affiliates, and then I just started going to phone directories and rooting about, and lo and behold, there was a new number, and it was Michael's, and I've got Michael here. And so I thought I would ask him, and I did a little earlier today. We're going to go through it right now and find out exactly what it is Michael was trying to do. First of all, had you heard that story before?
Yeah.
How old are you, Michael?
21.
21. What were you trying to do in the first place?
Originally, I just set out to make a fancy Jacob's ladder, and this was like what it turned out to be.
A lot of people don't know what a Jacob's ladder is. Tell them what it is.
Simply, in a nutshell, it's 2 metal rods with a spark going up in between it. And once it reaches the top, it starts back to the bottom again.
So, that kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
Like from a Frankenstein movie.
Yeah. That's where they got started at.
Okay, well, there are ways to do that. The Van de Graaff generator, for example. But actually, how were you going to do it? You told me something about winding your own transformer?
That's what I originally did. It was like real touchy, and what I did was use a laser.
Well, let's stay with the transformer for a moment. Yeah. How did you wind this transformer?
Oh, well, it's pretty simple, really. Just you took these metal plates and glued them together. In the simplest transformers, there's 2 coils, your primary and your secondary.
Is it like making a giant ball of string or something? In other words, you just keep winding and winding and winding it around?
There's like technical things. Simply put, it's like your primary coil will have like maybe 400 turns, or it depends on how many watts you want to make it to. Let's say it's 400 turns in your primary, and there's 4,000 turns in your secondary. 10 times the turns, and then you'll get 10 times the voltage.
Right, okay. Is that about what you did, 400 and 4,000?
The small transformer had about 450 turns in the primary.
So you just kept winding?
Yeah, until it got roughly 20,000 volts. 20,000
volts?
Yeah.
So you went from 110 to 20,000?
Yeah, roughly.
Without, I take it, very much current?
Actually, quite a bit. It was drawing about 3,000 watts, so it was probably about tenth of an amp. Well, that's a considerable amount when it's 20,000 volts.
So then you did this, you built this thing, and you had the arc, and you were able to achieve the arc, is that correct?
Yeah, it was like kind of touchy, because at the bottom of the metal rods, where the spark starts, if they're too close together, the spark will stick. But if they're too far apart, it won't arc at all. It was like real touchy. If I moved a fraction of a millimeter, the thing stuck, and if I moved it too far apart, it didn't do anything. So what I set out to do was use the heat from a laser to get it going by itself.
But the heat from a laser would attract the spark, sort of?
In a way, the heat from the laser lowers the resistance to the air is what it does.
Right. How'd you get the laser?
I practically made it from scratch. I took a CD laser and redid all the electronics in it, kind of like reinforcing it.
So you tore apart a CD player?
Yeah.
And so then you got the laser. Did it do what you wanted it to do, you know, start the spark?
Yeah, it's like had some other effects I didn't expect.
And therein lies the story. Other effects you didn't expect, like what?
That spark's pretty hot, so you're going to have like a heat signature like right above it.
You mean kind of like a hazy glow or something?
If you like take a lighter and like look right above it, you'll see like see like the heat from it.
That's right.
I knew that it was going to be like a bigger heat signature from the laser, but this one was like right above it. There was a regular heat signature, but it was like almost kind of like circular shaped in the center. Not really a glow. It's like if you don't really look at it, you can't see it.
Well, you know when you're out in the desert in the middle of summer and you see the shimmering coming off a road?
Yeah.
Is it like that?
Yeah, but normally those are just wavy lines straight up and down. But this one had the straight up and down ones that they were like circular shaped in the center. First, I didn't know what it was. I'm not 100% certain now.
You're back at this again?
Yeah, I'm just like picking up where I left off, but this time I'm not doing anything illegal.
When I called you earlier today, you said, gee, it's well you caught me or something. I just got out of jail?
I got out of jail March 30th.
Pretty much just out of jail.
Yeah.
And you're able to do this program tonight.
Yeah, I got all kinds of free time right now.
Were you employed back when you got in trouble?
I was like supposed to go to work the next day.
This cost you your job?
In a way, because there's other things branching off this, but my boss thought I contaminated his plant with PCBs, but that's another story.
I guess from the Transformers, huh? Your first small contraption, you told me something about throwing a bolt or a screw or something?
Yeah, a sheet metal screw. See, I didn't know what this thing was, and it was like, I don't know, I just got the notion to throw a screw in it to see, like, what it did.
So you threw a screw into the circular area?
I've talked to a couple of physicists. They call it a vortex, but...
All right, you threw it into what we'll call the vortex.
Yeah.
All right, what happened to the screw?
Well, I had this thing sitting on a table, right? I threw it in there, and I didn't see it after that.
It disappeared?
Yeah, for roughly. I, did it 3 times. My laser burned up, so I knew it'd do that. I just didn't think it'd do it so quick.
So it probably provided such a high SWR, it's called, standing wave ratio to the laser, that it burned it up?
It's like pushing that farther than it was designed for is what it was.
Mm-hmm. But you're telling me this thing disappeared?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. It did one or two things. It went half a second into the future, and then I caught up with it, or it made like a real intense magnetic field. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
All right, this is fascinating, Michael. It really is, because there are aspects of what you have done. I've interviewed the people who did the Philadelphia experiment, Michael.
That's what the Montauk Project is.
You're messing with the same sort of stuff. Oh, well, anyway, all right, so continue with the story. It disappeared, you blew up your laser, and then you sat there thinking, I did something different here.
Yeah, it's like it freaked me out. At first I thought I was seeing things, but...
So what did you do, go away and think about it for a day or two or a week? Or when did you finally get this brilliant light bulb of an idea to build a larger unit?
It's like a half a second is not very much. But I figure if I make a bigger one, it'd send it farther. That way I could really, tell if it's, if I was, sending it through time or if I was just sending it through an intense magnetic field. Did
it occur to you right away when you blew up your little one, I'm going to build a bigger one?
First, I was after that thing burned out, literally after all the smoke cleared.
In other words, there was sort of a reaction to the screw.
No, where the laser, when I say the laser burned up, it literally caught fire, the electronics.
So your equipment was smoldering?
Yeah. I was thinking about just rebuilding the laser, because the basic part of the laser's fine, but the part of the electronics, they were totally ruined.
Just rebuild the electronics and try it again.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about doing, but I figured I almost have to start from scratch except building the transformer. But so I figured I'd make just a bigger version of what I did.
You needed a lot of voltage to do this, right?
2,000 volts, that's very touchy.
10,000 or 20,000 volts really arcs.
Wattage in a welder will arc when it's only 10 volts because there's so much amperage behind it. But you have to get it real close. At 2,000 volts, it has to be within half the space between the rods at the bottom has to be half a millimeter apart for it'll arc.
How far apart were your 2 rods on the first small machine you built?
About 2 inches.
2 inches? Oh, that's pretty good space.
Yeah.
So then it dawns on you, let's build a big one.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask you about this earlier, but in order to get enough voltage and current, you needed a big transformer. Power company has big transformers.
Yeah.
Really nice ones.
Yeah.
how did it dawn on you to borrow several of the power company's transformers?
I was originally going to buy them. Like, there's a transformer company in Kansas City that makes them for the power company.
Well, there was an idea.
I could have, like, saved my money and bought those, but those are expensive.
How much is a transformer, just out of curiosity?
When I buy them from the factory, I buy them at wholesale to St. Joseph Light and Power, the power company I stole them from. They valued the 6 transformers I took, they valued them at $13,600 some dollars.
At this point, what were you calling it, by the way? Obviously, it was no little entertainment thing anymore.
Like I said, I'm not sure what this thing was. It was either an intense magnetic field or some sort of time machine.
Well, actually, it would have been a combination of electrical and a magnetic field, I guess.
Yeah.
Plans got big. You decided you wanted to build a great big one. So, according to the story, you had 2 big poles on your porch. Is that correct?
Yeah, 3/8-inch metal rods, roughly 4 feet.
Oh, that would have made a big spark.
Yeah.
So you had the rods, and you needed the transformers desperately.
Yeah.
You probably could have saved up for it, but you didn't. You made a mistake.
Yeah.
And you,
in a hurry.
So what did you do? Did you sneak into their yard? How'd you get the transformers? You didn't heist them off a pole, of course.
Oh, heck no.
So
They were noticed immediately. They were gone then. These were just sitting by a substation in King City. They've been sitting there ever since I moved to Missouri, so...
You hated to see them languishing without use.
Well, they were just sitting there rusting, and they don't even use them. Heck, in fact, right now, they just got them put away for safekeeping, they say, so...
Probably historical record.
Yeah, now.
So anyway, what did you do? Take a pickup truck? Those things are heavy, aren't they?
The biggest one I had weighed 350 pounds.
You must have had an accomplice.
Yeah, a couple of them. I haven't talked to them. Their court date was the same as mine, and they didn't look too happy with me. So.
I'm sure they weren't.
No.
So anyway, somehow you talked them into helping you out in this venture.
Well, it was right in broad daylight, so 11 o'clock in the morning.
And so in broad daylight, you took the transformers, loaded them up in a pickup truck, I guess?
Yeah.
And hauled them to your house.
Yep.
I see. And you had how many of them?
6.
Why did you feel you needed 6?
Originally, I was just going to take a couple of them so I could...
You got carried away.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you got the transformers to your house. Then you, I guess, hooked up the primary of the transformer to the poles.
Yeah, basically, I just hooked it backwards.
You hooked up to the power coming into your home?
Yeah.
What happened when you did that, by the way?
Well, I didn't get to the big version of it. I didn't get the laser part yet. I was going to order that from New Jersey.
Had you produced a large spark with it?
See, that's another thing, too. Before I was, like, arrested on the 30th, and February 3rd, I was going to pick up, like, 60 feet worth of cable so I can reinforce the cable to my house.
You mean actually coming in from the pole?
Yeah.
What were you going to do, climb the pole?
Pretty much, because I figured if I called the power company and had them reinforce the cable to my house, I'd, like, draw suspicions.
Well, I'm sure it would. They would want to know why.
Why I'd need a cable that carries 2,000 amps instead of the usual 200.
So you nevertheless hooked it up and you turned it on, didn't you?
Yeah, I hooked up the smallest one that I could hook up without, like, overloading the cable and causing a fire.
What happened?
Just that in itself is just like a giant Jacob's ladder.
How far apart were you able to get these poles and still produce the spark?
About 18 inches. It was the smallest one I had. Changed 240 to 12,470.
When you did this, according to the newspaper, you blacked out or browned out portions of your whole town. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was like overloading the power grid because I was drawing more power than I thought it was.
Well, what got you caught? Was that what got you caught?
In a nutshell, a friend of mine was at my house.
Somebody squealed on you.
I don't know what happened exactly, and I'll probably never know. That's in the past. I ain't really worried about that now, but what happened was a friend of mine, like, from my house, shot a BB gun, like, shot out my next-door neighbor's sliding glass door window. Yeah, and I got the cops snooping around.
And they just happened to see this incredible rig on your porch.
That happened at roughly, heck, this was back in the end of January. That happened around noon or 1 o'clock or something like that. They came by with a search warrant at 11 o'clock at night.
So obviously they had seen it then, and they decided...
Well, they'd never been in the house.
Right, but they didn't have to be to see the porch, did they?
The porch was closed in. All the windows were boarded up.
Oh, I see. I guess, Michael, when you started a big gap, an 18-inch gap like that, it would have created an intense white light.
Let's see, it was a 5,000-watt spark, so it was...
It would have been very intense. Maybe from your neighbor's perspective, Michael, they would hear this. Yeah, they'd look over at your porch and they'd see this white light streaming out from all the little cracks and places, and they'd get worried.
That's a possibility. See, it's like it's one of the reasons I moved from Stanbury, because half that town wants my head on a pole, I have the feeling.
You mean they don't like you now?
I don't know if this is just another unfounded rumor or not, but a lot of those people's television sets are ruined and stuff like that, because I was like drawing so much power, and it's normally at between 110 and 120 volt outlet, but they were estimating I was like bringing it down to like 80 volts, 80 and 90 volts.
That is damaging to electronic gear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people in town with appliances that now are doorstops are probably not happy with you.
Yeah, pretty much. Most of it is just like lights would flicker and dim real bad and stuff like that. Evidently, it's people that were just having to be watching TV when I operated it. See, I operated that thing at night, too. So, see, at first when I hooked this thing up, I thought it was a 5,000-watt spark. I figured it'd be, well, it was like drawing a heck of a lot more than I thought.
A lot more current?
Yeah.
You weren't going to walk into the middle of that spark gap, were you?
No. Well, like made the big version if it did the same thing.
Something a little bigger than a screw to disappear, maybe.
Yeah, like maybe an orange or something like that. And if it came out like in one piece without getting fried to crisp,
then you would have walked in?
Well, there's other things, too. It's like the Philadelphia experiment. From what I've heard, people were
buried in the deck?
Yeah, embedded in walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, because you can't tell where you're coming back out.
Yeah, you lose your time lock, but...
Would you have eventually done it if the orange came out okay and then maybe you tossed a cat in or something?
Well, if everything else came out all right, like totally unscathed, well, I'd probably try something that was alive and small, like a grasshopper or something like that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Before the cat. Now you're a free man again, out of the pokey, and ready to begin experiments I've just learned all over again. You're going to do this again, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Well, you don't give up easily, I'll say that for you.
Nope.
By the way, what did everybody think of you when you were in jail? I assume you told them this story.
Well, until the media started taking it seriously, everybody thought I was a nutcase.
You sound sane to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
What are you going to do now? How are you going to rebuild it, in other words?
Do what I originally set out to do, buy them.
You're going to buy the transformers?
Yep.
What would be the legality of your using them if you bought them? Would that be perfectly legal?
Should be. I mean, you might get into EPA violations by, like, take them apart and, like, get oil all over the place and stuff like that, but as long as they don't do anything like that.
You mentioned you lost your job. How did your employer think you polluted his workplace with PCPs? I mean, you had not taken these apart, right?
One of them I couldn't use. I didn't really want to take it back there and get caught taking it back, so figured I might as well strip the copper out of it. And while I was originally, I didn't really just dump it on the porch. That was kind of like an accident. I was like taking the oil and putting it in a plastic wastebasket. This was like only a 3,000-watt transformer. That's pretty small for a pole, like utility pole. Mm-hmm. It weighs like 150 pounds, and I was like the only one doing it, and my finger slipped, and I ended up dropping it and dumping like 10 gallons of oil all over the back porch. I ended up getting it all over me, too, because it splattered. Anyhow, it's like got all the back porch. Well, anyhow, the shoes I was wearing at the time also were the shoes I wear to work. You thought I'd track PCBs in this plant.
So that was the end of your job?
He didn't really say that, but I have that feeling, because he, like, asked me who and all was in my house, who and all was around those transformers and stuff like that.
Has the EPA knocked on your door yet, Michael?
It turns out the transformer I took apart, I tried telling them that, they wouldn't take my word for it. The transformer I took apart, there was like 4 PCBs were around. It turned out just to be plain old crude oil.
I'm sure you were personally relieved a little about that.
Well, it's like I was almost certain that was all it was, because last time that transformer was even checked was in 1924.
So you're going to try this again. You're going to save up money, buy the stuff, and try it again. Are you going to do it on the big scale the way you did last time?
Yeah, pretty much.
Going to be on your back porch?
I'm living in an apartment right now, and, yeah, I'm on the 3rd floor, too, so I'll probably move before I do that.
That might be good.
Yeah.
That might be good. That might not go well in an apartment.
Yeah, plus the power going to my apartment is only 10,000 watts, so if I draw more than that, I'll overload the transformer and blow it.
Just a theoretical question for you. Let's say that you produced a time machine, Michael, and you actually managed to go either forward or reverse in time. What would you use it for?
Heck, there's possibilities are endless, pretty much.
I am so convinced that time travel is real and that time travelers are out there that I do think only you can be the judge, and of course I will sit here and judge as well as we listen. But I'm telling you, they're out there. Hello there?
My name is Steve.
So you're claiming to be a time traveler, eh?
Yes, sir. This started when I was about 6 or 7 years old. Every night I would go to sleep, I would travel through time. As I progressed through this dream over the last 52 years, the entity that was taking me.
Obviously, you got to see some of the future.
During this bad depression of stock markets and the bear market, when it was down so bad, I made 121% interest on my money.
You used the information then to make good trades and become rich. On my time traveler line, you are upon the air. Hello.
I traveled into the future.
But what is your name?
Nunshi. It means the little people in Cherokee.
How did it happen?
I went to bed, I went to sleep. I woke up, early morning hours, everybody asleep. My bedroom door was open. And when I went down the hall to the entry hall, the front door was open. And I knew I was going to go meet ghosts, people who had died.
Even with what happened, would you have a knowing that this was what was going to occur?
Because the Great Spirit, his name is Jesus, he told me. But I didn't quite understand him. In my ability to understand him, I thought, oh, it's going to be ghost strewn. Oh, they're going to be see-through. I knew that my path was to walk out into the front yard, and I put my hand on the chain-link fence post. Mm-hmm. And I saw lines of people. And these were all the people who had ever lived. Yes, everybody who has ever lived. I hadn't yet been enlightened. I didn't realize what was taking place was real, and it was in the future.
On my time traveler line, you're on the air. Hello.
My father died several years ago, and he used to take these 8mm movies. So what he did was he took these 25-foot reels, and then he spliced them together to make a 400-foot reel. Now, the last 25-foot reel that he took, I did not open. For some reason, I didn't open that for about 20 years. When I finally opened it up and I tried to squint to see the little pictures and see who was in it, all of a sudden I felt a change in my mental state. I felt that I was myself from the 1960s visiting in the 1990s. I felt I was myself in the 1960s visiting the 1990s. But it wasn't flickering. It was just in my hand. I was just looking at each frame. The thing is that afterwards, I have tried to do this again, and it has not worked.
At the time that it did occur, how real did everything seem? Were you actually there? Were you catching little flickers and flashes of it, or were you there?
It was like I was visiting another city, but I was visiting another time.
Your senses, the things you saw, the things you felt, you heard, that were all around you, were you really there?
I was in the 1990s. I was aware that I was in the 1990s. But for myself, any knowledge that I had gained, I'd studied stenotype in the 1960s. Now I know it. But had anybody asked me to do it, I don't think I'd be able to do it, at least immediately. My mindset was in the 1960s. And I was aware that I had temporarily become myself in the 1960s. The thing is that I've tried this again. It hasn't worked. And my theory is that the atmosphere, since this package has been closed for 20 years, the little puff of atmosphere of air in that may have just entered my nostrils. So I think that if you, go into an Egyptian tomb without the idea of getting treasure, but simply going back in time, if you collect the air from that, bring it back, and have somebody just breathe in that air.
You really think that could do it, huh?
I don't know.
All right, all right, thank you. Good morning. You're on the air, Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, for George Norrie, and you're on the Time Traveler line, which means that you must be a time traveler.
My name is Cross. I'm listening on KSTP in Minnesota.
You Cross, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Cross. So you've traveled in time. In what manner, please?
Actually, I was taken there by another individual. His name is Malachi. It's happened on multiple occasions. The first time I went to the year 2045,
What did you see?
It's actually more of a, I guess you could say, a medieval or tribal setting. There is no technology. It's more of an inner peace kind of atmosphere. People are on a one-on-one basis with each other, almost more on a telepathic level than actually through technology of cell phones or computers. In fact, there is no technology to be found.
Well, the future's brighter already. Human beings begin to evolve into telepathic, spiritual creatures, and we begin to drop all the trappings of technology. Is that it?
That is correct. And I believe, from my understanding of the experience and visually seeing what was going on, it's all brought about by a higher being from somewhere. I don't know if it's a religious entity or if it's a spiritual entity or if it's a outer space type entity or whatnot, but something comes to Earth and has touched these individuals in the future and has taught them the old age capabilities, I guess, in a sense that all humans have, and how to reuse them that they haven't used in a long time. And at the point in 2045, it's almost already has been for a good 5-6 years, so it's almost evolved to a point where it's natural occurrence, and that's why the technology is washed away and the lack of need for modern-day need of communication.
Interesting. And so then you saw people walking around serenely in a state of contemplative communication with each other, and it was a totally different world than we have today. But you're not quite sure what got us there, whether it was alien intervention, God's hand coming down and changing everything, or evolution, or just what, huh?
Exactly.
East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Good morning.
This is Ed. Albert Einstein proposed that time and space are closely related. And as we hurtle through the universe in our galaxy, we're constantly moving. I would propose that we're all time travelers. At times, we're moving in opposition to all these natural movements in the universe. And I think there's a universal time. And as we move on the Earth in opposition to this natural movement, I think we have all experienced deja vu. And I believe at some point we get to a point where we've moved enough in opposition that we're out of sync with that universal time. We don't get all out of whack. At some point we have to come back. And so we experience deja vu.
Deja vu is just the sense that you have been somewhere or done something previously, right? Which could come from anything. Wow, I've been in this room or something. Time travel line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, my name is Steve.
All right, Steve, are you a time traveler?
Yes, I am indeed. I've been traveled in time and in space as well. I had first experience when I was, I think, about 19 years old. I was playing in a band, and I loved auto racing. And suddenly I saw the auto race before it happened. Yeah, and I saw a crash, a mortal wound to the driver, and I called my mom.
You saw something that was about to happen. I suppose in a sense that's time travel, isn't it? Precognition. I had one experience like that only, and so you made a call.
Yes, I told Mom, and so I said, let me know what happens because I saw something very frightening. And indeed, everything I saw was what happened about 2 hours later. As far as spatial is concerned, I'm one of those people that every time you have a guest on, I've had almost every experience that most of your guests have. It's just been like that my whole life since I was a small kid.
Well, I've been on the air a long time, had a lot of guests. That would mean that you are a very experienced person indeed.
Well, I'm not bragging about it neither. I'm not saying that it's done me any good either. But I have been inside spacecraft. I have traveled through time. I'd be on your show if I wrote a book. I just never wrote a book.
What kind of spacecraft have you been in?
This went back to the mid-'80s. I met some people who told me that they were people that received writings, and they received a writing from space people for me. And they read it to me, and it sounded more like me than me. I thought I was getting hooked into some kind of weirdo group. I'm not a far-out character, you know. They told me that these people have been in communication with me since I was 5 years old. They asked me if I had any recollection of anything like that, and I told them that I used to go out at night, in the middle of the night, and just stare at the stars when I was a little boy. And I would see myself traveling amongst the stars. Mm-hmm. And the girl looked at me and said, your dream is going to come true. Mm-hmm. And when she looked at me and said that, her eyes got 5 times as big as they were before, and they were this green colored, like a cat's eye. And at the moment I saw those eyes, she said to me, if you could only see your eyes right now, you would understand.
Hi there, on the Time Traveler line. You're on the air.
Hi, Art. How are you today?
I'm all right. Where are you, sir?
I'd rather not say, if that's okay.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine. We allow anonymity here. You're calling this line for obvious reasons. You believe you've traveled in time.
From this time to some type of start of creation. I'm not sure. What had happened is a doctor had bought a home. He was, his name is Dr. I don't know if I should
all right,
say.
No, don't. We don't
okay.
need the name. It's not important.
All right. And he invited us to a barbecue as a housewarming.
Uh-huh.
And he had dozens of birds and whatnot in his garage. And I thought nothing wrong with this. And my wife and I, we had a great time. We were, you know, joking and laughing. And there were several other neighbors. And he came up with a for instance, of have you ever gone back in time? You know, after the dinner and everything, you know, I thought it was a joke. And he pulled out a contraption and put it in the backyard. And it was about the size of a small triangular phone booth. And I laughed. I thought it was ridiculous. And I said, how can you travel in time back on that? And he said, well, let me show you. He put 2 or 3 birds, I think it was 3 birds actually, in the contraption.
Were you the only other one there?
No, my wife was there.
Your wife was there?
And actually
right.
Another couple was there.
Okay.
He started up a generator, and it made a horrific noise, and it was like a lightning bolt. It was something that I can't even describe. I couldn't even see for about 10 seconds after it illuminated in the corner of the backyard. I thought it was a magic trick. I thought, this is fantastic. He's a magician. About 10 minutes later, he said, no, watch it. It'll return with almost the same energy. Not quite as much. It did return. There was a flash. The birds were back. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous.
Was this a regular physician kind of doctor? I mean, an internist or, you know, something or another normal, or was he...
He was in physics, I believe. Some kind of doctorate.
That kind of doctorate. Okay. All right.
Well, he takes the dog, his own personal dog, and he does this. He put the dog into this booth type thing, and he energized it, and he did it again for a second time. Now the dog has gone. Approximately 10 minutes later, he makes the dog return. Now he asks, do I have any volunteers? Now again, I think this is a magic trick.
Uh-huh.
I volunteer, having probably a few too many Budweisers, and I sit in this contraption. Well, I've never been so scared in my life. It's like somebody put a flash bulb on a camera in my face. That's all I can remember. I don't remember anything else. That's all I can describe it as. A thump. I fell out of bed. I look, and I'm in the middle of some forest. I don't know where I am. I have no idea. I can't tell you where I am. I have no idea. Get out. And I'm like, oh, my God, where am I? I don't know where I am. Now I'm in fear because I don't know what to think. I don't have any inclination. The only thing I can tell you is that it might be at dusk or dawn.
You could have been in the jungles of Brazil or something, for all you know.
I don't know. I can't even tell you. I don't know where I was.
So,
all I know is I was in some kind of forest.
Can you remember what you did? Did you walk? Were you able to function in this world, or were you just there and gone, or what?
I was able to get out of the vehicle, or whatever you want to call it.
It was there physically with you.
It was with me. So I just stepped around, and I didn't want to go away too far away from the vehicle, figuring that I'd be stuck there. And I got back in the vehicle. Maybe 3 minutes had taken place. But it's like a door that you could open and you could walk out. I thought it was a joke. Again, a flash bulb. Bam. I don't remember anything. And I remember people laughing. And that's all I can remember. And that was it. And this is the scary part. Supposedly, this doctor that had invited us over, he just bought the house. He had only been living there for a month. Commit suicide in his garage from some obscure reason. This is approximately 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, you find the doctor is now, the PhD has committed suicide.
Yeah. There's nothing on the premises. You know, we're wondering what happened. There is no basis for why this man has done this. He was a jubilant single man. I think he was 59. That was it.
You were either shifted geographically or shifted in time.
Oh, no doubt.
And maybe he's now elsewhere, and what they think, the body they think they loaded in is just the one they happen to load in.
And as the party, broke up and whatnot, I said exactly what happened. he said, well, I've discovered a generating system that, to put it in layman's terms, will transport you back and forth into time. And I said, that's absolutely ludicrous. I've never heard of such a thing. And he said, well, that's why I had you do it first, to experience it, because otherwise you would never believe me. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I started thinking maybe he was crazy, but then I'm thinking, well, where was I? Where did I go? What better way to prove it to you than to do it first and then talk about it?
On my time travel line, you're on the air. Good morning. Yes, sir. What's up?
Well, about 44 years ago, I took a short time trip as a result of an accident. I was talking on the phone with my girlfriend, and I was struck by lightning.
Can you describe exactly what happened, what you can recall?
I was sitting on a couch that my mom and dad had covered with plastic, the 1960s stuff.
Yeah, of course, yes.
And when the lightning came through the phone, a ball of lightning came through the mouthpiece and knocked me about 20 feet. It was very strange because all of a sudden I was outside my body and I was looking back at the area where the phone was, and I was still sitting there. At this point, I was looking at myself before the lightning struck. I was kind of hovering there. My existence was kind of hovering in the air, looking at myself, and I actually saw the electric pulse come in through the phone line, and I watched in very slow motion as the phone line began to melt, and the lightning came out of the phone and struck me. And everything was moving very, very slowly, like a slow-motion picture. As things were progressing, it started moving a little quicker and a little quicker. And at the point where the ball of lightning came through the mouthpiece of the phone and struck me in the head, and my body came off the couch, my body started moving towards my essence. And at that time, things started moving a little quicker. Like, the best way to describe it is when you're watching a film and the reel starts to slip, and it kind of flickers a little bit, and then it starts to catch up.
It's like it just blew you right out of your body, and then sort of out of the present time stream, and then back again.
Right.
Well, such a large electromagnetic occurrence just might do exactly something like that.
And as my body got closer to my essence, things were speeding up and becoming almost more into normal time.
Yeah.
And as my body merged with my essence, there was a tremendous flash. And up to that time, I hadn't had any pain or any sensation. And when my body merged with my essence, it hurt. And that's the best way I can describe it.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. Thank you very much. That is an amazing story. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello. And your first name?
Mark.
Okay, Mark.
My father presented this UFO time travel theory to me, and I thought it was perfect for tonight's topic. You know how when you travel through space, you're traveling, like if you take a piece of paper, you're traveling the distance of the piece of paper.
Right.
And if you fold that piece of paper end to end, then you could travel from one end to the other end without traveling the distance.
Physicists use this example all the time to explain the folding of space-time, yes.
Well, my father believes that the UFOs that we see are actually ourselves from the future coming back, checking up on us, or however you want to put that one.
I can imagine that there might be reasons why a future us would be back here, perhaps observing, if not attempting to affect things.
And how come the UFOs just seem to disappear or appear across the sky?
Yes, and they do that, as in really disappearing, to our point of view anyway. Yeah, you're right. Very good thought, sir.
Yeah, on a side note, there's a movie called Happy Accidents. It's about time traveling with Marissa Tomei. You might want to check that out.
Any movie connected to time travel, I guarantee I will check out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. On my time traveler line, you are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm David from Albany. Do you know that the South American Indian look at going through life as though walking backwards because what you see is only memory?
No, I never thought about it that way.
And what you are experiencing right this moment is brought about collectively your likes, dislikes, experiences of love and hate and so on. And they're cumulative to the point where you have a picture which you establish feelings, and with your intentional focus, you then project it into what we call the curtain of reality.
The curtain of reality.
Yeah. if you drop this curtain, you'd see heaven.
We're erecting a barrier between ourselves and heaven, is what you're suggesting.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
The other item is that space and time, in fact, do have a similarity because time does not exist until you project it into 100% time of reality. The other item about space, in Raja Yoga, we used to do mantras. That creates space. Now, at times, when I'm driving a cab and I notice that I'm putting in a lot of people and delivering them, and this time appears to be going very slow because I look at the clock and I see that I've done more in say, 2 hours than I would normally do in 12. And then it seems about 6.5 hours later, it begins to catch up with itself, and everything goes back normal.
So pretty interesting. As you consider the nature of time and the possibility of time travel, all of this is absolutely riveting. And it's been something that I've been studying perhaps more than I've even mentioned to you or that you've imagined as you've listened to my program. I've spent a fair amount of time on it and have some devices that I'm ever so tempted to test myself. And that was plural, as in more than one device. A sort of little tantalizing place to leave it, huh?